Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel. Welcome to the Dice Tower. This is Week in Review. This is a video we do every week here in the Dice Tower where we talk about all the videos we put out over the past week. We're giving you short, quick summaries of them. And then if you want to see the full review or whatever the video might be, we got links in the description below. Here we go.
Hey everybody, I'm Garcia. Here's what I did last week. So I reviewed the Phantom, the card game, which I rated a 4 out of 10. This is a clever idea, but unfortunately it feels a little clunky. The production quality is not great. The game feels very dated, and I just had a really hard time enjoying this one. Mining enjoyment. Some humor came out of it, but like not good humor. The game just felt a little undercooked for me. But again, some clever attempt at storytelling in it, of a sort of, following a comic book plot line. It just didn't really pan out to be something I found fun. I reviewed Magellan Elcano, which I rated a 5 out of 10. This one is just a very forgettable game. It's a cute enough little card game, but there are no twists. There isn't anything particularly clever here. It is a game I did not hate playing, but almost immediately could feel it fleeing my brain because there was nothing to keep it in there. The theme isn't interesting. The look isn't interesting. The gameplay is passable but not memorable. So yeah, this is a card game I would not recommend. There are so many interesting card games out there now that this is simply one you don't have to bother with. It is a mediocre game, though. I wouldn't rate it lower than this. I reviewed Before the Guests Arrive, which I rate a 6 out of 10. This one does have a couple of interesting ideas, though the replayability, I think, really isn't there. But in it, you are drafting lines, you're sort of putting out a pattern, and drafting rows or columns of cards, and then using the people in the house to tidy up the things you are collecting. So you're collecting both people and things. You're trying to score points by tidying up. You want to not be stuck with things you haven't tidied up when the guests arrive. And I like that. I think it's a very clean game. It's definitely family friendly and absolutely targeting that market of being sort of a game for every age and a mixed age group. But the game is missing a little pizzazz to make it higher than this score for me. And then lastly, I reviewed, together with the gang, The Guild of Merchant Explorers, which I gave it a 7.5. And this one is sort of a flip and write style game, but done with cubes. You're not actually writing anything. And it's got some clever ideas. The main one being, which I'm sure everybody else is mentioning as well, this idea of you having special, unique powers that only you have when specific cards are flipped. Some are the same, so put cubes in two mountain spaces or what have you. Okay, we all do that on our own boards. But when the number 1 card is flipped, my number 1 is something I drafted that does something only I do, and so is everybody else. You do that 3 times. You'll have 3 unique cards to you. Very clever, very interesting. The scoring leaves a little something to be desired. It's sort of by the numbers in many ways. But I did like this one. Big box, though, and usually I like my, X and right style games to be a little more compact, but still good game. Really neat stuff. And there you go. That's it for me. I'll see you on the next one.
Hi, I'm Wendy Yee, and this week I was in the review for Guild of Merchant Explorers. This was a 4-square review, and I gave this an 8. Now, I gave it an 8 because, I really liked a lot of what was going on in this game, especially the player powers that you get that are individual each round, a particular action that you can do something really amazing and big, even though the basic actions are very simple and small. It makes such a good game for that, but the fiddliness of the pieces, especially with me with my chunky fingers and sometimes my long nails, I just get frustrated that I might bump cubes and that I don't know where to put them back. And there's a lot going on there with the fiddliness and the moving around of cubes on the board. And so I wish that was cleaner, and I wish that it was better. I think if it was, I'd give it an 8.5, but I am only giving it an 8. But overall, the game is absolutely awesome. The gameplay and the good decisions are wonderful. They're definitely there. So that's why I gave it an 8. Let's see who's next.
Hey everybody, Chris Yee here. This week I took a look at the game Tabannusi. I gave this game a 6. This is the newest in the T-game line from Board and Dice. While I enjoy a lot of the games in this line, I found this one to have such a mess of rules and a mess of symbology that is really hard to learn and hard to keep straight in your head. After putting in more and more plays, I have a little bit more fun each time, but it's just not worth the load, the mental load of effort, the teach, and so I'm just not sure that this is one I want to come back to at all. It's more interactive than many of the other heavier Euro games, but it almost even works to the detriment on this one. While it's fun, ultimately it's a 6 from me. So that's the review I did this week. I also did a board game story. We're working with Fulvio Pisani, who does some amazing graphics and small camera miniatures work, narrated the story of the board game Alone. So you can check that out too if you'd like. Till next time, thanks.
Hey there everybody, it's Mike DiLisio. This week I reviewed 3 games. First up I reviewed Bandada. This is a 1 to 2 player game, but I reviewed the solo mode. There are actually 2 solo modes in the game. I gave this a 7.5 out of 10. It does some really cool things. It's really a dice manipulation and mitigation game. It plays very quickly, but it's a beautiful little package. The production is great. I don't know if there's a tremendous amount of replay value. One game to the next feels relatively similar, but one that I can definitely recommend. Then, I was also part of the Foursquare review for the Guild of Merchant Explorers. This is a game that I gave an 8 out of 10 to. It is essentially a flip and write game without the dry erase markers. You're using cubes to put out on player boards. It does some really interesting things in that space. There are these kind of unique player power cards that you get that really elevate this to the next level. Component issues knocked it down a bit. I feel like the box size is also way too large for what it is. But overall, a really solid game. Again, an 8 out of 10. And then finally, I reviewed the solo mode for one of the hottest games out there right now, Arc Nova. And I've come to the conclusion that I feel it's probably best for me as a solo game. I rate the game itself an 8 and the solo mode an 8.5 because it really takes care of many of the issues that I have with multiplayer Arc Nova, meaning, mostly that it's too long, especially at the higher player count. So you can play a solo game of Arc Nova in 45 minutes to an hour easily and still have what I feel like is the same core game experience. And so if I'm going to play Arc Nova, and I'm sure I will in the future, it will likely either be solo or 2-player. All right, well, that's it for me this week. Let's keep it moving.
All right. So for me, I took a look at Cantaloop 2. This is a point-and-click style adventure, like the computer ones, but done in a board game format. I really like the first one. The second one, 5 out of 10 for a couple reasons. It's a boring sequel in many regards, and it has a mini game in it, like a programming puzzle mini game, which is a good almost half of the game. And that just really detracts from this experience. Azul, Queen's Gardens. I know a lot of people are going to love this one, but it's almost too thinky. I found myself sometimes kind of bored waiting for other people to take their turns because there's so much thought that goes into it. It has some Azul things, and it's not necessarily bad. I just didn't like it nearly as much as the other Azul games. 6 out of 10. Berried Treasure. This one's a 6.5, although I could see it being a higher ranking for many people. It's just way too light for me. You're collecting cards, but we're talking about a game that has the same amount of strategy as Uno, really. It's a nice update of Sid Sackson's classic game, but not necessarily for me. Downtown Farmers Market. Me and the girls reviewed this one. I gave this a 7. This is a game in which you're placing 16 tiles out, you're drafting them from the middle, trying to fulfill victory conditions in rows and columns. A pretty thinky game. 7 out of 10. Dead Reckoning. Oh, so this is a big review I did from AEG, a huge pirate game, and there's a lot of things I love about it, and there's things about it that don't work. At the end, I'm giving it a 7.5 because I enjoy the experience a lot, but you have to realize there's some component issues. The game is just a little too bloated, but there's also some really fun stuff, crafting your pirate crew, dropping cubes down. It's a big mix of a game. The Guild of Merchant Explorers. We did a Foursquare review on this, sort of a roll and write style game. I think this one has a lot of potential. I think this one's gonna get played a lot by many people this year. 8 out of 10. Lord of the Rings Confrontation. This is a kind of a classic review. It came from 20 years ago, although technically I reviewed the 2005 Fantasy Flight edition of it. 8.5. Lord of the Rings and Stratego. It's a good combo. Riftforce Beyond is an expansion for Riftforce, a 2-player back-and-forth game, adds 8 more factions and ways to play with more players and solitaire. More players, Solitaire, that's fine. 8 more factions, awesome, 8.5. And Lockup Breakout, I like it as much as the original game, so I gave this one a 9. I really like Lockup. It is a fun game. This adds a dungeon underneath where your prisoners can try to escape. It adds some more cards. I think that's fantastic. I also took a look this week at some upgrades for Wallenstein and Shogun, which are pretty good, but overpriced. You can see some more information about them in that overview. I talked about my top 10 games from Yellow. I did another shelf review of the Dice Tower library, and I showed my upgrades in my All the Fixins series about Wingspan and how I upgraded Wingspan. We also did all of our live shows, crowd surfing, board game breakfast, and the top 100 games of all time from the A-Team. 4 of those went up this week. So I hope that you enjoy all that content. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, this is Week in Review on the Dice Tower.